Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, May 1st, 2014. Can you believe it, folks? It's May already. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear a an incredible 3-hour program live. This is a live broadcast, of course. We look well beyond the news, beyond the headlines, beyond the fog of disinformation and misinformation to bring you the news behind the news, the information that's important for you to understand. At least we believe that to be the case. We hope that to be the case. We understand you are investing 3 hours of your time, and we don't want to squander your investment of time. And I just have to say that we love hearing from new people. Thank you for checking in with us. We've heard from people all over the country here over the past week, and in several other countries as well, listening live. I want to say hello to Karen, listening in Rome, Italy. God bless you. And, of course, Stan, listening out of London, England. Hello. Thanks for listening. Folks, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the Internet. Coming alive is HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your belief, your trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. I want to remind everyone we are a listener-supported broadcast, and I want to thank everyone who's helped us stay on the air through your very kind financial support. Also want to mention, and I'm excited about this, folks. I really am. I'm very excited about this. Portions of tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Nature Box. Order great tasting, healthy snacks right to your door. Forget the vending machine. Get in shape for summer that's coming, hopefully, with healthy, delicious treats like everything bagel sticks, for example. Support our show and get 50% off. That's right, 50% off your first order. Go to naturebox.com/CFP radio. That's naturebox.com/CFP radio, folks. Tremendous stuff. I'll tell you more about it later. But Joe, welcome to the studio tonight.
Glad to be here. We got a lot of things to get into tonight. No guests for this evening, so we're going to be taking phone calls probably halfway through the show. I know we got a lot of news to hit, starting off in Ukraine.
Before we do that, just about last night, I talked to folks. If you didn't hear last night's program, please tune into it. Now, I know there's a few words there that were people slipped and said a couple of bad words there, or I heard all about it today. Believe me. There were some mistakes made in terms of not being able to hit the button to censor the words. Sorry about that. But it was a passionate discussion. But this morning, the phone rang and at the office, and it was pretty early, and it was Robert Tosh Plumley on the phone. And this was right before another call that I got. But here's the long and short of it. Based on what he was told from a source, and also from what I heard, the Office of the Attorney General of the United States under Eric Holder, there was a Deputy Attorney General that was tuned in, listening live to the broadcast last night. And assistant to the Deputy Attorney General. That's more accurate. And the message to Mr. Plumley was, they are angry. Well, those weren't the words that were used, but you can imagine they're angry. And that Mr. Plumley had no right to talk about the issues he was talking about. And certainly he had no right to make the accusations. That's the word according to the source from Mr. Plumley. Well, and Mr. Plumley was, now this is a 76-year-old former CIA officer. who is still well connected, very well connected, and I had heard from another source outside of Washington, I'll just leave it at that, who said that what Mr. Plumlee did and what he said was extremely dangerous. The information was damning and damaging. Those were two words that were used. And that his information or his accusations will not go unanswered by this government. The full weight of the government will be placed upon Mr. Plumlee as well as those who have facilitated and associate with him. Now, I suspect that does include us. Well, now I guess it's a party, right? Let it begin. Because the truth does always win. And oh, by the way, the cellular telephone that our intelligence insider was using last night for the broadcast was absolutely destroyed. I mean, it's gone. It's a paperweight right now, and that says something. It was a malicious destruction.
So he didn't destroy his own phone?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, it was destroyed for him. No, I don't know all.
Did he need a new one? Or is he due for an upgrade? Because they could have done him a favor, possibly.
Well, it's how I feel about these new digital phones or digital phones in general, digital cell phones. I don't like them at all. I carry a cell phone for emergencies. It's one of those old people phones, basically. You know what I'm talking about. I don't mean the spiritual old people, but I'm saying the type where if you need help, you can just dial 911 and really that's it. Just in case even I'm in trouble. So, but that's my.
You can take any phone, even if it's not hooked up with service, and call 911.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean landline or okay.
Yeah.
People should know that too, just in case.
I'm not even sure. Well, I mean, the one I've got, I'm not even sure I know how to answer it, except to just like I've never used it really because I've never had the emergency. But so folks, I guess the reason what I'm saying here is last night's broadcast is probably one of the most important broadcasts we've ever done, and it speaks to the extent of the lie and the right now how serious things are. I don't know, Joe. I mean, what did you think about last night?
Well, I thought it was a very intense interview. As you said, the language, that happens, I guess, sometimes when you have two intelligence guys, older, getting into what they were getting into. But as far as the emails are concerned, I received a lot of, I know you did too, received a lot of emails about people really thanking us and saying how much they did enjoy the show.
Yeah.
So I hope it was informative. I mean, it dealt with a number of things, primarily Benghazi and the cover-up from the administration of the gun running and the purpose of Benghazi. And then it got into a lot more also.
Well, exactly. And I'll tell you something. If after listening to that broadcast, you're only if the only thing that upsets you is the salty language on occasion, then there's nothing I can possibly say or do for you at this point. Seriously, if that out of that conversation, if that's what offends you, wow.
And things are so intense that I want to thank Gray for sending us a little care package that we got rid of the Nerf bat in the office. And we were each given a set of...
Whoa. We didn't get rid of the Nerf bat. I got it right here.
Yeah. Well, compared to what we got today, what we each received today, I don't know if you've ever seen blow darts. These, I saw them for the first time in Florida in real life, but somebody sent us each a package of looks to be about 10 darts, very sharp, and one of those machines, the blow darts, that you see in movies that people put poison on the tip. So we're going to be using these from now on instead of the Nerf bat, and it's just an indicator of how much things have intensified in this country.
In the Hagmann and Hagmann studio, which is a microcosm of the United States, these things are not toys. This will, seriously, these darts will go through you.
I went outside and from the back of the studio, there's this wooden shed that's we see the side of from somebody else's, and from about, I don't know, had to be 25 yards away. Direct bullseye. So and that thing's far, from the back door to that shed out there. It's pretty far, and I was just doing that as a test to see how far. So I'm sure maybe 50, 100 yards. I mean, this thing has, sniper rifle accuracy. So we just got to get one of those big blowfish or a poisonous frog to get some of the poison for the tips of these things, and we'll be in business.
Yeah, I'm sure the Department of Justice, who's no doubt monitoring tonight's broadcast, will be interested in hearing us talking about blow darts and the attempted acquisition of poison, right?
Well, we didn't get the poison yet, but it's funny, we were talking about the other night, there was a big, humongous half spider, half pig, I think. My dad says it was just a spider. But we were trying to kill it. It was at the end of the first hour, and we talked about it for a few minutes. I actually got an email that said, "Please stop talking about spiders." I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, whatever. But no, we do have a lot of news and information to get into tonight. By the way, today, May 1st, if I can just have a couple of minutes here, I just want to, we constantly talk about the Illuminati and about things, about the occult, really what's behind this satanic agenda of the United States. And I'm just going to set up the what's happening today and what led up to today in terms of today being May 1st, if I can. Do you mind, Joe? Or is this, we didn't script the show.
No,
although you
ahead.
were in studio early, we didn't script anything.
No, go ahead. We actually got a lot done today. Folks will be looking out. We'll announce it, but a new Hagmann and Hagmann app for iPhones, Androids, and mobile devices.
That's
we
right.
actually got that in motion today. It's already made, but it has to be. We have to work out some things and learn how to use it, and it'll be made public soon.
Yes, and we'd like to thank one of our listeners, actually, who put this together, who does this for a living. I'm not going to name his name, and we don't have his permission, but certainly he'll get the, if he wants his company credit, we'll get the, or his company is, and he himself and those who worked on it will get the credit for it. It's something to provide to you folks who listen via phone, via Android, via, any type of mobile device that I'm not even sure what an app is or what it does, but it's kind of like Alex Jones has one.
It'll allow easy, right? With the app, you'll be able to listen to live shows. You'll be able to listen to archive shows, get news and information. It's from the prototype or whatever I have on my phone now that's not publicly available yet. That the makers showed me how to get into, how to access it. It looks like it's going to be awesome.
Tremendous. Okay, so that'll help those who listen by mobile devices. Well, all right. Where are we at here right now? We're at May 1st, 2014, and commonly known as May Day, of course, folks. You know it is May Day, but I think it's important because a lot of people, we toss words around like Illuminati and all this stuff, but we really don't talk about what's behind the words, the time, and the importance of and the significance of this. And there's this one phrase that I really want everyone to really understand, especially in the lead up to tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to have W, by the way, the intelligence insider, on for the entire 3 hours. We're not even sure that's going to be enough, the 3-hour program, and we're trying to look into getting a 4th hour because of the nature, the expansiveness of the information. But that, I'm not sure that's going to happen in terms of a seamless program. But May Day is significant. May 1st is significant to the Illuminati, to the people who are planning our demise. And I had mentioned, we throw around these terms, and what the phrase that's important for tomorrow night as well as tonight is, it really doesn't matter what you believe to a large extent to the people running the show, running this covert agenda. It matters what they believe. And if you think about that, you've got to put some thought into that assertion. I mean, of course it matters what you believe to you, but to them it doesn't. It matters what they believe. If they believe that if they stood in the middle of a pentagram and turned around 3 times, and if they believe that casts some sort of a spell, well, that's what they believe. It matters to them that they believe that, is what I'm saying. But there are certain things done that leading up to, and this has everything to do with the devaluation of our dollar and the demise of our currency. This has everything to do with Ukraine, with the domestic terrorist activities here. It has everything to do with what we're seeing taking place. So don't downplay this, what I'm about to tell you. If you look at the occult calendar, from April 19th through May 1st, there's 13 days preparation culminating in May Day or May 1st. Now, these 13 days prior to and including May Day, May 1st, consist of 5 sacrifices to Moloch. Now, where do you hear Moloch before? Well, that reportedly is the statue at the Bohemian Grove that all these big-time leaders and presidents and vice presidents and other sickos go and dance around, and they're all together, right?
And it is also in the Bible about Moloch, and I am going to pull up the verse, or an important verse on what the Bible says about Moloch. It is a deity or god with a little g that these sickos sacrifice and burn their children.
Right. In fact, I'm going to get into this. Moloch is also known as Baal or Baal. Baal, whatever. Nimrod, Saturn, and so on.
In Jeremiah 32:25, it says, "And they build the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnon, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Moloch, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judea to sin."
So there is a biblical context, a biblical and historical context and reference here to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's associated with the groves also, where in the Bible it's talked about much about where the groves and the idols are set up in the groves and the altars are set up in the groves, which gives a different take on the Bohemian Grove where Moloch sits.
Right. And think about that, folks. You've got these most powerful people, or the wealthiest and arguably powerful people, dancing around an owl as if it's some backyard barbecue. What mentality? What's that mentality all about? Well, it's really the worship of pagan gods. Now,
and if I may, sorry for interrupting so much. To anybody who thinks it's a coincidence that the world leaders get together 2 weeks out of the year to go to a grove in California and have a ceremony where Moloch, their giant owl deity, sits, to say it is some kind of what do you call it? Coincidence? To say it's some kind of it's just fun and boys' games. This is biblical. The Lord warned about this. He warned about how he would set his face against all of the people that committed whoredom with Moloch and other fake deities, and any of his seed that would set up groves and idols and altars. And the first commandment tells us, I am the Lord your God, there is none, etc., etc. We have one Lord, we have one Savior, we have one God, and it's Jesus Christ.
One true God.
Correct.
And just to be
Moloch is
clear,
not that God.
wait a second. Right, to be clear, it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, that's just in case anyone has any question.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, all right. Speaking of coincidences, look, there are links of child sacrifice, and this is difficult to really even talk about, but there are links of sacrificing children through fire to these pagan gods in our past, and even to some extent in our recent past. And there's a disturbing coincidence of some mass murders committed in this time period involving fire and children, of course. Now, this includes the fire, well, for example, think about this, at the Branch Davidian complex in Waco. That happened 1993, the beginning of the 13 days of preparation for May Day, for May 1st. You had the Oklahoma City bombing on April 19th, 1995. Coincidence that children were murdered en masse in those two tragedies, I'll say tragedies, murderous affairs? Of course not. McVeigh, in fact, cited the Waco incident in his reasons for committing the bombing at the Alfred Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Now, could they all be tied together? If we take a few steps backwards and take a look at this from an investigative point of view, a logical, reasonable, sensible point of view, it might not make sense to us, but in some twisted, convoluted way, does it make sense to these people, these Satanists, these pagans, these whacked-out sickos? It looks that way. Okay. It would almost appear that these incidents can all be tied together with the sacrifices to Moloch. Now, the Oklahoma City National Memorial was dedicated on the same date of April 19th. That happened in 2000. Now, as well as to commemorate the victims, and annual services are ritually held at the same time and day, 9:02 a.m. on April 19th. And of course, people can say, well, that's when it happened. Well, right. Now, we get that. But could there be something else, some type of other overlay to that? But let's throw another link into the mix. The Boston Marathon bombing suspect, that's Hagmann Zarnov. Well, he was shot and killed on, guess which day? April 19th, 2013. Coincidence? Well, you can say, well, could be. But the Beltane Festival is celebrated starting on April 30th. And again, the backdrop of this, the reason I'm giving this history is because I think it's important for us to know what the opposition is thinking and not kind of laying it all out here. Beltane is the festival celebrated beginning on April 30th, which was yesterday, of course, and it's the final celebration before May Day, which is today. It's the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. Don't forget, these people look up they've got heavenly gods, small g, and they do things with planetary alignments. And of course, this is one of the big four annual occult festivals, Beltane is. It marks the beginning of the summer season, and bonfires are often started as a ritual for protecting crops and for protecting people, and the flames, of course, are symbolic of the sun. The occult worship of the triple goddess is celebrated here as the Earth Mother phase is back in her full glory, depicted as Gaia. Okay, now we see Gaia worshippers and Earth worshippers, and you've got Earth Day built into that time period. But did you know that April 19th is the most important date every year in the satanic calendar of high holy days? Again, it begins that 13-day period of blood sacrifice to the beast that culminates on May 1st. the it's interesting because Illuminist mentor whom Clinton admits is Adolf Hitler. It was on April 19th, 1943, 50 years before Waco, that the Nazis used flamethrowers that incinerated some very courageous Jewish freedom fighters who had been resisting the Holocaust in the Warsaw Ghetto. Think about that. As the Illuminati carried out their plans to achieve this New World Order that we're seeing coming into existence right now, the 13-day period that I'm referencing is very important to them. If you go back to 1775, the Revolutionary War began at Lexington Concord on April 19th, 1775. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting to note that guiding spirits supposedly advised both English and American Freemason leaders. Well, they emphasized that North America was to be established as a new Atlantis, and Paul McGuire talks about this, and others that we have on talk about this. But America was to be established as a new Atlantis that would lead the rest of the world into this kingdom of the Masonic Christ, also known as the New World Order. Once again, it's you might not believe this stuff. It might seem over the top, outrageous, conspiratorial, but the fact that they believe it, they're practicing this kind of stuff. You have to sit up and take notice. It's like for example, when we're if you're a cop, for example, a police officer, a detective investigating a serial killer, what drives a serial killer? Well, maybe look at the son of Sam. The allegations there. Now, the public allegations are different than the reality. When you think of the son of Sam, well, he's getting his orders from a dog. Do you believe it? No. Does he believe it? Yeah. So, is it important that you believe it? No. It's important that he believes it. That's the example. But the Masonic Brotherhood said in some circles anyway, that the Masonic Brotherhood, this Masonic this Freemasonry, started the Revolutionary War in order to gain freedom from Great Britain. And that's how Washington, D.C. was laid out through this Masonic order. Yeah. Isn't that weird how, if you look at Washington, it's the layout, and we have the three city-states, Washington, London, and Rome, the political, the economic, and the spiritual foundations of man, not of God. But, one of the things that in Freemasonry, they have a lot of debate. Oh, are they good? Are they bad? etc. Well, when you talk about, and this, I guess I'm going to speak on this first. In the Bible, when you have Jeremiah and Isaiah and Job and the Old Testament prophets, when they wrote and were writing their prophecies about the stone, the cornerstone that would build the faith, like in we'll say in Isaiah 28:16, therefore thus saith the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion for foundation a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, that he that believeth shall not make haste. And later in the New Testament, we see in Ephesians, and are built upon the foundations of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. There's a lot of references in the Old Testament to this cornerstone that in Matthew and in the Gospel, it talks about the stone that the builders rejected is become the head corner, and it's talking about Jesus Christ. Well, the Old Testament prophets, in their messages, they might have understood this. I know Daniel did, but many people who were reading it didn't. Well, in the New Testament, and we have the whole picture in the Bible, we can understand what the Old Testament prophets were writing based on what was said from the New Testament and the laying, and who was the cornerstone. Well, that was Jesus Christ. Isn't it interesting that the Brad Meltzer decoded when they looked into the Freemasons? What did they do from Washington? What did they take from the Capitol? They always say they took the cornerstone
from these buildings. And there's all this secrecy and debate on where these cornerstones are.
It's a good observation, by the way. Go ahead.
And I just found one verse in Jeremiah that I thought was interesting that might foretell of what the future holds for these people. Jeremiah 51:26. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but shall be desolate forever, thus saith the Lord. What is that referring to? I'm thinking as I read that. They shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, stone for foundations, but shall be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Is that talking about an end of this brotherhood?
That was a dramatic pause there, or at least that's what I want you to think. I couldn't find my button there.
I was going to say.
Sorry about that.
Dramatic of a pause.
All right. Well, looking back through history, I think one can make a prima facie case about the time period between April 19th and May 1st. And this all, folks, hang with me, because this all does have to do with what we're seeing today in Ukraine and the dollar demise and such. Okay, go back to April 19th, 1943. You had Nazi stormtroopers trapping the last of the Jewish freedom fighters in a storm sewer pipe in Warsaw. And on that morning, they waited until the morning of April 19th. They poured fire into both ends. And just imagine this. It's difficult to imagine, I suppose. They poured fire into both ends of the huge pipe with their flamethrowers. And years later, the fiery disaster at Waco occurred. By the way, in occult gematria, the number 5 is the number of death or for death. So when you have a 50, for example, it's reduced down to 5, and that's the number for death. And once again, I remind you, it doesn't matter what you believe, it matters what they believe. And on April 19th, 1993, is when Waco took place, and the compound was essentially defenseless. I mean, we do know that there were guns involved. However, Koresh and over 200 men, women, and especially children were killed. There was a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act that prohibits the use of military weaponry against American citizens. I'm sorry, there were 200 people inside the compound, 67 adults and 17 children, or 83 total were, or 84 total were killed. In April 19th, 1995, exactly 2 years or 24 months to the day after the conflagration in Waco, the Murrah building was destroyed along with the daycare center, killing many, many children. And on April 26, 1998, a few miles from where we sit, now this is during the same time period, just a few miles from where we sit, there was a school shooter in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, that killed a teacher and
I remember that.
And wounded 3 others. Yeah,
I actually met somebody who was a member of the school in there at the time of the shooting. I can't tell you where or when I met and talked to this person, but it was recently.
And you should remember. But no, it's and we see a lot of school shootings. For example, the Littleton, Colorado Columbine High School shooting, April 20th, 1999. 15 were killed, 14 were wounded. April 26th, there was a shooting in a German high school. There was a shooting in Bosnia, a couple of shootings in Bosnia. And I can go on and on and on. I'm not going to do that.
When did that shooting in Norway take place with the children's camp?
Oh, yes.
If I remember correctly, that was around the same time.
Man, no,
I'll look it up.
Okay. But you know, even though other school shootings in America occurred at dates other than this period, this satanic holy day period, it's interesting and important for us to look and see that we've got these bloody sacrifices to the beast, and I say that intentionally. Yeah. During this period of time.
I was wrong. It's 22nd of July, 2011.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed to me it was in the summer sometime, but okay. Well, so all of this going up to May 1st, which is also called, April 30th and May 1st is the Beltane Festival, also called Walpurgis Night. And as I said, this is the high day on the Druidic witches calendar. May 1st is the Illuminati's second most sacred holiday, where human sacrifice is required. Since the celebration officially begins the night before Beltane, the tradition has developed among the occult people and Satanists and Luciferians to celebrate Beltane as a 2-day ceremony. The tradition was extremely strong. Well, it was strong enough that Hitler himself decided to kill himself on April 30th at 3:30 p.m. local time. That, of course, in the occult gematria is a 333. And certainly that raises some questions there. And great bonfires are lit on the eve of Beltane, April 30th, to welcome the earth goddess, Gaia. Participants hope to gain favor with this goddess, so she will bless their families and procreative fertility. And isn't it all about the fertility as well as the blood? But
yeah, it's funny, the abortion, they worship quote-unquote fertility gods, and maybe that's why, there's sacrificing children to Moloch and the satanic abortion sacrifices that they have. Maybe that I'm sure it ties all together in there. And we do have a 4-minute audio from a Dr. James Dobson who made a speech today. And actually, Greg Jackson sent him an email, and I'm not sure if he responded or not, but he forwarded you and me, Dad, into this email chain where they reached out to Mr. Dobson. But
I gotta say, and I want to say this. Greg Jackson is a great man. He's a great man of God, a great patriot, and a prolific author, writer. We have a lot of respect for him. He's a frequent guest on our program, and Greg is really very proactive. And we should thank him for everything he does, because he really puts his efforts where his intent is, and he really does a lot of good. Yeah, we'll play that audio clip in a second, but this brings us to the Maypole celebration, and I never understood this, folks. I never understood this. I thought this was just totally ridiculous until I began researching this. I thought, how crazy is this stuff to even talk about and think about, and what does this have to do with anything? But remember, the Maypole originated from the celebration of Beltane. Since fertility is being really asked of the earth goddess, and forgive me for even having to bring this up or sounding crass, the pole itself it's a phallic symbol. And the circular dance around this pole forms the circle that is symbolic of the female sex organ. Now, if you think about that, okay, and you think, oh, gosh, this is so far out. Remember how we talked about NASA being really kind of an occultish agency? It really is. Just, if you want to do your own research, if you don't believe me or don't care to believe me, you can just think about the union, and I use that word intentionally, between the space station and the support ships, and how that works. ISIS and the Dragon, and look at the occult symbology of NASA. But anyway, with respect to Maypole, 4 6-foot alternating red and white ribbons are connected to the pole. Men would dance counterclockwise, while ladies danced clockwise. Okay, you've got men and women holding these ribbons, and men dance counterclockwise, counterclockwise. Women dance clockwise. The union of the intertwining red and white ribbons, well, that symbolizes the act of sex. And remember, you've got to remember that this is all about the fertility. Okay, to demonstrate their occult Illuminati ties, communists have always celebrated May Day. If you have not been taught how the Illuminati created communism, that's something you should research, because that was created for a specific reason. And communism is the framework which is going to bring in the New World Order. Now, since we're on this topic, and before we get into Ukraine, what we're seeing take place all over, and get into the news current, that backdrop is important because we are right today on May 1st in this occult celebration. This is the culmination of the satanic high holidays from April 19th to May 1st. That's why I thought this was important. And consider that as the backdrop for the rest of what you hear tonight, and especially for what you're going to hear tomorrow when we have our intelligence insider on. And by the way, there was somebody sent me a question about our insider. He was one of many, but one of a significant few who was instrumental in taking down the Soviet Union. I mean, he played a huge role in that. So, if you knew his story, not that he needs, certainly doesn't need my endorsement, but just to give you an idea of his experience. And I do know, in fact, I was privy to I have to be very careful here. I was privy to see something that a few others have seen, and that's behind the screen, testimony behind the screen, where he went head to head with a senator, time, who's not a senator anymore. He's something much, much, much higher. And let's just say it was an interesting exchange. But that I say that only because I want to verify his bona fides. Seeing that, my eyes, kind of like a cartoon, almost popped out of my head. But at any rate, why don't we play that clip from the doctor? Because I think that's important, especially
Dr. James Dobson.
Yeah, I think this, and because this is timely and this is critical to understand what's really going on.
Yeah, it's a 4-minute clip, and it builds up. It's really good. Here it is.
Keep my time very short this morning, but there's something else I want to say to you. I have been here to sit. By the way, Shirley's sitting down here. I don't have a problem with humility, because God gave me Shirley, and she keeps me in line. But we have, I want to say something. In those 20 years, I have never made any kind of political statement, and I won't do it today. This is not what we're here for, to talk about who we elect and, parties and all that. We just don't do that. That's not what the National Day of Prayer is all about. But something we are all about is morality. And there has been an issue that has come up that you need to know about. President Obama, before he was elected, made it very clear that he wanted to be the abortion president. He didn't pull any, he didn't make any bones about it, that this is something that he really was going to promote and support. And he has done that. And in a sense, he is the abortion president. And early on in his first term, he announced through Health and Human Services that every American who gets insurance, which should be almost all of us, would have to pay a surcharge. It started out at $1 a month, so that's $12 a year. I don't care how much it is, but $12 a year that would go skyrocketing. Everything, every tax does, right, Judge? And and that we would have to pay it, and that would go toward the support of abortion. And it would go to Planned Parenthood. And in fact, his budget that he submitted this year had $250 million for Planned Parenthood. And it's breathtaking what this means for unborn children. Well, that was very offensive to my conscience to tell me that I had to participate in this and to pay even a small amount of money in the beginning for the support of abortion. So I wrote this in a letter that went to 250,000 people. I doubt if it got anywhere near the White House, but this is what I wrote. I believe in the rule of law, and it's been my practice since I was in college to respect and honor those in authority over us. It's my desire to do so now. However, this assault on the sanctity of human life takes me where I cannot go. I will not pay the surcharge for abortion services. The amount of the surcharge is irrelevant. To pay 1 cent for the killing of babies is egregious to me, and I will do all I can to confront the government that lies to me about its intention and then tries to coerce my acquiescence with extortion. It would be a violation of my most deeply held convictions to obey what I consider to be the principles of Scripture. The Creator will not hold us guiltless if we turn a deaf ear to the cries of innocent babies. So come and get me, Mr. President, if you must. I will not yield to your wicked regulations.
That was Dr. James Dobson giving a speech, and I'm looking for the article here, at a breakfast. Where is it? He is a Family Talk Radio show host, and also is the head of a foundation, I believe. Here it is.
Well, too, while you're looking for that,
James Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family and Family Talk Radio, delivered a harsh message to President Obama and an opponent in court on Thursday, describing him as the abortion president during the address at the National Day of Prayer.
So there you have it. And we stand with Dr. Dobson. We stand with others who are refusing to pay 1 cent to finance the abortion practices of the Planned Parenthood. Abortion is a hideous practice, of course, and it's Obama is the abortion president. But you know what? It seems like all of the politicians, all of the elected leaders, have no moral objection to abortion. And if anyone who has heard Russ Dizdar speak in his conferences, and if you've talked to Russ Dizdar or looked over his material, I just find it very interesting. The connection between abortion and Satanism. Now, before you start throwing things at your computer or whatever you're listening to me on, saying, "Oh, that's just ridiculous," there is a component here that's not talked about, and that's child sacrifice. And think about this, folks. We'll take that out of the equation. We had such death and destruction that took place on 9/11. Well, we've got roughly 3,000 to 4,000 abortions take place here in the United States per day, the equivalent of more than 9/11 each day. Yet the media and others are silent. We've accepted it, haven't we? We've just accepted the fact that, well, abortion is the law of the land. No, it's the law of the land. In a lot of abortions, In fact, I have a list. After the break, we'll go through it here. I've got some interesting information about where our country is with respect to our morality and our spirituality. That's all adding to the darkness that we're coming into. But folks, you've got to know that the sacrificing, and it sounds so. Again, I'm going to stop apologizing for this because.
Thank you.
All right. It just sounds so strange, but we do see the abortion as play a very big role in the Satanistic agenda, and this goes into eugenics as well. This goes into population control, the Georgia Guidestones, Margaret Sanger, of course, Hillary's patron saint of Hillary. My words, of course, and Hillary, of course, has received the Margaret Sanger Award back in 2009. But Margaret Sanger is the founder of institutions that culminated in the institution now known as Planned Parenthood. I don't have my notes in front of me here, but Sanger, of course, was a great eugenicist, and they were in favor of eugenics and also in favor of aborting black or minority children.
Yeah, and on that note, Martin Luther King's niece, Dr. Oliveda King, today told students that today abortion is modern day black genocide, and she's not wrong when it comes to being genocide or black genocide, because the majority of aborted babies, 53.6%, are black.
You know, and that's right. And I was talking with a friend of mine who just happens to be black here about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and we got onto the topic of racism, and we talked about a lot of things. It was over coffee. We happened to bump into each other, and he said, "Hey, I heard you on Alex+Jones," and we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that we talked about is abortion, and about how he understands that abortion is rampant in the black community.
I'll never forget that phone call where somebody, I forget who it was, did a phone call to Planned Parenthood, offered to donate a bunch of money only if the money went to abort other than white children. Only under the understanding that none of the money would go to abort white children, only minority children. And they were very accommodating during the call. Obviously, they continue to get funding from our government, Planned Parenthood.
Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy. So this is in this time period, April 19th to May 1st, and it doesn't end on May 1st. I mean, this celebration doesn't end on May 1st. However, the killing of the sacrifice of children and people, this is a keystone, an important part of the New World Order, the agenda of the New World Order. And this is what's going to happen here. This is all part of the larger program. Now, I mentioned Ukraine, and Joe, you'd mentioned Ukraine earlier. There's a lot of things. Ukraine, when people are looking at Ukraine, and folks, I think this is important for everyone to understand. All of us, the mainstream media, has programmed us to look at the current situation, especially with Ukraine, in the larger sense, as a three-pronged war, if you will, or three-pronged enemies. There are three enemies fighting against one another: China, Russia, and the United States. What we're seeing right now, at least this is how we've been programmed to view things, is China and Russia closing ranks against the United States. And we see this, whether it be Benghazi or Arab Spring, or you just pick the situation anywhere on the globe, and we see battles being fought by proxy, battles between the United States and Russia, and even to a lesser extent between the United States and China, but it's all by proxy. The unthinkable, of course, would be the nuclear war between the United States and Russia, we'll say, or the United States and China. Instead, and to avoid that, we're fighting by proxy. Russia is fighting us by proxy. We're fighting them by proxy. This is where Ukraine comes in. Don't forget the architects, too, and this is so complex, but it's simple as well. But the complexities, think of it this way. The illuminists, the people behind the power, behind the illusion, and it was interesting that Robert Tosh Plumlee had alluded to this last night, where there's Obama's just a figurehead. There's people behind the curtain, and of course he would know. He flew arms and drugs and people back and forth all over the world. He was part of financing or part of propping up both sides of the different wars. Well, when you get at that level, you understand that there's a hidden hand behind Obama. So when you get to that level, you understand there's something more behind Ukraine than just this uprising. But if you think about, if you go back to the Soviet Union, and I mentioned W's role in that, he was the one that pointed out to me, and folks, don't forget about this. When the Soviet Union collapsed as a communist power, who was one of the first people to go over to his resort? What do they call them? Dakas in the Soviet Union or Russia? And held court with the various parties of the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union back then. It was David Rockefeller. Yeah, you can look that up. But when you look at Ukraine, and you've got to understand that this is what's taking place is not, or what we're seeing taking place is not what Brit Hume, for example, the very well respected newsman journalist. Of course, you're not going to hear this out of his mouth. I don't know. Is he one of the dancers in the togas? Is he part of the toga party at the Bohemian Grove? Do we know? It doesn't really matter, but yeah, I was just curious. But the fact of the matter is, what we're seeing happen in Ukraine is intelligence, backed by Western intelligence, the same way that, and this is in Putin's, really his front yard or backyard, depending on your perspective. But this is a tit for tat offensive that is in response to what we're doing in Syria as well. Russia, Putin had come out of the Olympics swinging, and of course, the Ukraine and Crimea is part of the response to our efforts to destabilize Syria. And vice versa, our involvement in the Ukraine is also of a punishing, or a punishment, if you will, or to keep him busy, Putin busy, and Russia busy, while we create mischief in Syria. So this is kind of a tit-for-tat situation. It cannot be. It's linked very heavily. The two are linked very closely to one another. Before the break, I just want to say this. It's interesting that what we're seeing here, if you go back to a March 4th, 2014 report in Bloomberg Business Week, there's an article called "How Russia is Pushing Ukraine into the West's Arms." It would do you well to read that, because that has some interesting perspectives with respect to the larger picture. Putin's military response, bellicosity, are indeed having the effect desired by the globalist elites. Russia's response to Ukraine's upheaval is really pushing at least half of that country into the arms of the European Union, the IMF, NATO. They're all intertwined, as well as providing the United States, the European Union, the IMF leaders with the political and moral cover that they need to rescue Ukraine with billions of dollars extracted from us, from you, the taxpayers of the United States and the taxpayers of the European Union. So this is quite complex, and behind the curtains, another of the desired effects is the disorienting confusion wrought by a political world turned upside down, especially by those interventionist, progressive, communist-type people such as George Soros and Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, facilitated by such, well, media outlets as the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, PBS, and so on. I can go on and on and on. And it's interesting because suddenly they sound like rabid anti-communist cold warriors. But, they're not. And it's interesting how the right is suddenly becoming, or seemingly to become, becoming unwitting apologists for Vladimir Putin. It's all an illusion, folks. More after the break. This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today, Thursday, May 1st,
Got a lot of news we're going to get into and take your phone calls starting halfway through this hour.
One more thing I want to add. We are going to take your calls, but one more thing I want to add about Ukraine. I never fail to disappoint to jump in and interrupt you at the most inopportune times. But how Ukraine, the Middle East, Israel, how all of this connects to the fall, the crash of the dollar, the intentional takedown of the U.S. dollar is this. Real quick.
Well, let me interrupt you before you say that.
That's fair.
No, I got a
don't point that at me, man.
Urgent prayer request. Susie Q, we're praying for your husband, Billy. I saw what you wrote in chat that he's in the ICU. We will be keeping him in our prayers. Just wanted to let you know.
Indeed. Susie Q, our hearts go out to you. Folks, keep Susie Q's husband in your prayers, please.
Billy?
Okay. Wow. I see you. Do we know? Did she share or? Okay. All right. Billy, who's the husband of Susie Q, a listener, very valued listener. Billy, we're praying for you. We wish you a speedy recovery. And folks, please say your prayers for Billy. But one important thing here, how this is all connected. Before the button is pushed to take down the U.S. dollar, there must be such animosity, the United States, in addition to the U.S. dollar, must be villainized. And that's how we're being set up. In the eyes of the world, the United States must be villainized by our actions. So part of the psych out, if you will, and it's not really that big of a psych out or overreach, is to villainize the United States' actions as well as the United States, the dollar, the U.S. dollar. And they must do that in order to sway world opinion. It's simple, but it's elegant in its simplicity. Let's turn the entire world against the U.S. dollar, and in fact against the U.S., offer an alternative, which will be some sort of an SDR, special drawing rights dollar, it's my understanding, and establish this global currency, which will ultimately be digital, and from there, they've got absolute 100% control over everything you do. Can you imagine? Just for a second, imagine right now, and this will be a time in the future where everything is measured and monitored. Do you know like with energy, for example, the installation of smart meters, and everything has to be measured. Why? So they can monitor your consumption. It's going to be the same with the U.S. dollar, the same with the global currency. They need a way to monitor your transactions. And it's going to be ostensibly for the benefit of identity theft, to prevent that, to prevent, it's going to be the answer to everything, the fraud and all of this. But the bottom line here is they've got to move to a one world, single world currency, which will ultimately be digital. And that, of course, will set the infrastructure, or will be the infrastructure for the mark of the beast. It's not that big of of a mental leap to make, but it's an important one, especially for new listeners. Folks, don't forget, you might be light years ahead in your information and thinking, well, you're going over some stuff that we had gone over before, the stuff that you already know. But with the influx of new listeners that we have had here, especially in the recent several weeks, it's extremely important for everyone to kind of get caught up to the same, get caught up as much as possible. But this is all part of it. So to just understand, and Russia, by the way, is in dire financial straits. Everything we're seeing right now is really nothing but stagecraft. We're all the Illuminists, the Satanists, the people who worship the owl, the Moloch and such. Of course, they're financing all sides of the battle. When I say Russia is in financial straits, that also suggests that high oil prices would benefit Russia, and of course hurt the United States. Watch for that to come as well in the short term, in the near term, I should say. This, according to a couple of different intelligence and financial analysts who we've been in contact with of late. So, folks, if you're paying right now $3.59 a gallon or $3.09 or $4.09, whatever, the prices for gas vary widely geographically. Count on here, perhaps by the end of the summer, and I don't like to set dates, but we'll just say this: when things really start to get into motion, you're going to see a 25, 30, 40, 50% rise in gas prices. And, of course, we're already seeing that in the food sector. But when the prices for gas rise, it's going to increase the price of food even more. And it's all a vicious circle, and it's a very fragile logistics situation that we have here in the United States. Oh, and by the way, in case you haven't noticed, and I've been hearing reports about this all from everywhere, at least in our city here in Erie, Pennsylvania, for example. If you drive down the road, it's like driving down, Kandahar, some road in Kandahar. The infrastructure is crumbling. The roads, the winter is really taking a great toll on the roads here. Perhaps it's the same where you are. The money that needs to be spent on our infrastructure isn't there. This is all part of it. This is all part of what we're seeing, the misallocation of money, and ultimately what is being attempted here is the centralization of power in exchange for money to communities. You give us, or we'll give you, we'll fund your road work or whatever. We'll give you money for road work, but you've got to make concessions on our behalf as well. It's kind of a game of blackmail, graft. It's all tied together. Joe just tossed the note to let me, or to have me remind you, we will be taking your calls. We will throw open the lines early this evening, 9:30, or here within the next 10 minutes to take your calls to talk about whatever is on your mind. 661-244-9839. Joe, what do you got?
Well, we got some interesting news today. Remember we even mentioned this the other night, your DHS Insider Report on the social media and internet monitoring, what is it they called, the Obama...
Cyber warriors for Obama, 3,575 of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we have two stories today, separate in their...
but that was on February 13th of last year. My intelligence insider reported that.
Well, okay, here's two stories. First, White House monitor pushes back on reporters' tweets. A 24-year-old White House official monitors and flags tweets from reporters that the White House may disagree with, according to an article published by Yahoo on Thursday. Jessica Allen is tasked with monitoring the social media platform for tweets that push a narrative contrary to the White House's agenda. Allen then flags the conflicting tweets and sends them up the communications office food chain to all of President Obama's top aides, including Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough, White House counsel Kathy Remmel, and White House Press Secretary Jay Carney, and senior advisor and frequent media personality Dan Pfeiffer. Yahoo reports that many reporters who cover White House hear regularly from White House officials who push back against the narrative of their stories. So what they do here is anything that they see that is against their narrative, they use these cyber warriors to come against. Now, in a separate yet related story, U.S. State Department adopting social media to counter al-Qaeda propaganda. And on a side note, just in my own personal opinion, I've never seen any pro-al-Qaeda social media posts coming from anybody who is looking for the truth. I mean, when the Syria stuff was going on, yeah, you see some things about that on either side. But as far as just some Al-Qaeda channels, I've never seen any American, sitting there saying, I love Al-Qaeda, I want to be a part of them, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the State Department unveiled Wednesday that it is widely employing social media as a method to counter online violent extremism from Al-Qaeda and others. Buried in an intelligence report published Wednesday, the government said that the Center for Strategic Counterterrorism Communications, established in 2011, last year produced more than 10,000 online postings globally, which included one of 138 government-produced videos. The CSCC's program draw on a full range of intelligence information and analysis for context and feedback. The CSCC counters terrorist propaganda in the social media environment on a daily basis, contesting space where Al-Qaeda and its supporters formerly had free reign. The CSCC communications have provoked defensive responses from violent extremists on many of the 249 most popular extremist websites and forums, as well as social media, according to a County Report on Terrorism 2013. The State Department has a global social media presence from Afghanistan to Vietnam. The platform ranges from blogs to Facebook, Flickr, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Google, Instagram, and others. But the government also trains others, including victims of terrorism, to adopt social media, according to the report. By sharing their stories, victims of terrorism offer a counter-narrative that highlights the destruction and devastation of terrorist attacks. Workshops train victims to interact with controversial social media, to create public relation campaigns that amplify their message, and seek out platforms that help disseminate their message most broadly to at-risk audiences. At-risk audiences. I wonder who they consider to be at-risk audience members. Apparently those who aren't watching the Big Six networks. The paper also said that in 2013, violent extremists increased their use of new media platforms and social media with mixed results. Now, here's a 2-minute clip of Ben Swann's latest video talking about what we talked about the other night, the bill that just came out, the new hate crime bill. Here is Ben Swann's 2.5-minute video on this.
Well, a new bill has been introduced in Congress hoping to address the role of hate speech on television and telecommunications. Is that really a problem? I'm Ben Swann with your Truth in Media Moment. Thanks so much for watching. Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts has introduced a bill. It's called the Hate Crime Reporting Act of 2014. It would update a 2-decade-old report on the role of telecommunications in encouraging hate crimes based on gender, race, religion, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. The report applies to the internet, radio, and TV. Markey says he introduced this latest bill after deadly shootings in Kansas at 2 Jewish community sites left 3 people dead. The shooter was a guy named Frazier Glenn Miller. He was a white supremacist. Markey says, quote, "We have recently seen in Kansas the deadly destruction and loss of life that hate speech can fuel in the United States, which is why it's critical to ensure that the internet, television, and radio are not encouraging hate crimes or hate speech that is not outside the protection of the First Amendment," end quote. Really? So an example, Senator, if you please. What hate speech on television, radio, or internet encouraged this crime or forced this man's hand? The senator gives no example, not even one. But he wants the FCC to step in and still look at broadcast and cable speech, including public access television, as well as commercial mobile services. Look, let's get down to brass tacks here, because the senator, he isn't looking for hate speech on broadcast or cable TV. Are you seriously going to claim, Senator, that cable or broadcast TV has a problem with promoting hate speech? Of course not. This is a play to get control of speech on the internet. Of course, the real danger here for the public, who gets to define hate speech? You know, the power of our First Amendment is that you have the right to say things that I might deem hateful, disgusting, or offensive, and I have the right not to listen. The collectivist will tell you you don't have that right because your words are dangerous, and for the greater good, for the sake of the collective, we must deny the right of the individual. The founders and framers, they saw it very differently. The individual's right to speech, even if I don't agree with that speech, is still their right, and it must be protected. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all of our Truth in Media videos at benswan.com, where humanity is greater than politics.
Well, there you go. There's a well put together 2.5 minute clip by Ben Swan getting to the bottom of what the real deal is behind this hate speech bill that has been put out, and we will see where this hate speech bill goes if it's passed, what will be the ramifications, and this obviously has the outcome of this will probably have a big impact on what we do. Anyway, there are...
you know what, to put this very simply, hate speech is defined by anyone who is in power. Now, that could be the right, the left, the progressives, the conservatives, but just understand that. And George Orwell had spoke extensively about. It's interesting that we see this coming to pass at this point.
In the UK, 3 people were arrested for anti-radical jihad speech. And there was a politician, I think, who was arrested. I think he was a politician, but there was a person arrested who was quoting Winston Churchill just today or yesterday for hate speech.
Right. And this will affect anyone on the internet, and it will affect, what is next? The progression of the oppression of free speech. Look at the free speech zones. Look at what they're doing with the free speech zones. Look at how we are tolerating the free speech zones, as if we don't have a choice. You've got to stand over here to protest or to speak your mind. You can't go in the town square and protest. No, you're relegated to a certain area, a mile away or a football field away, where your protest, your speech is irrelevant. And our forefathers never intended it to be this way. Of course, we've got the First Amendment for a reason. And folks, we've got to keep our eyes on this. Don't forget, and I don't know if you mentioned this or if Ben Swan mentioned this, he's the former chair of the House Communications Subcommittee. Now, and as you pointed out, or as Swan pointed out, this is in the wake of the Kansas shootings. Folks, this is extremely dangerous, and they ultimately, and I'm working on a pretty extensive report on this as I was researching some things. Ultimately, you will not be able to preach or talk about Christianity in a positive light. And I remember Steve Quayle talking about this, saying, well, you're not going to be able to talk about Jesus, for example. You're not going to be able to use his name, and we're seeing that more and more. Yet, and certainly you're not going to be able to talk about the jihadist, or you're not going to be able to talk about anything anti-Muslim. You can't talk about anything Islamic in a bad light. And this goes, and let's just take another step back, and I like to look at the big picture. Isn't it interesting that the CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, is favoring this under the auspices that this will curtail the slandering of Islam, the hate speech against Islam. when in fact there is a lot of factual presentation. But do you see how Islam is being used as a mechanism to, via Sharia law, to alter our constitutional law? And notice that Obama had said and promised that if an ill wind blows against the Muslims, he'll stand on the side of the Muslims. Well, this is part and parcel to that. So the picture is a lot bigger. And I really believe, folks, that we this goes too for this militant homosexual activist war. This goes against this is a war against our morality. This is against the fabric of our moral and Judeo-Christian roots. In fact, when I had done some research, if you look at the strategy, for example, of the militant radical homosexuals, that was deliberately exposed back in 1987 and again in 1990 by two guys that teamed up and wrote a book called The Overhauling of Straight America, Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen. But we can apply this template to this hate crime bill. There's and I'm not going to read it, but it's a 6-point strategy that gets into this. The bottom line with this is that as Christians, we have not just our civil rights that are under attack, but our spiritual rights, our religious freedoms that are under attack. So in one fell swoop, they're going to take away our ability to talk against or to be political dissidents, and they're going to also take away our right to be to talk factually about the Muslim religion. This is going to usher in, this one piece of legislation has the potential to usher in the criminalization of both political dissident speech as well as religious speech, or anti-Islamic or pro-Christian speech, however you want to frame it, in one bill, in one law. And we see the as I mentioned earlier, we see the underpinnings of this through these free speech zones. Our rights are being violated every time that we submit to this free speech zones, these free speech zones. Oh, and by the way, the press corps, the very people who should be speaking up the loudest about not being able to speak their mind or to do their job, the press corps, they're being muzzled and manipulated by the executive branch, specifically the White House, as well. This all ties together. This all fits together. If you look close enough, you can see this agenda that's taking place. This very well thought out, very well heavily orchestrated agenda. Folks, it's critical. And timing right now is critical. Can you imagine a time, and I'll close with this, but can you imagine a time or a situation when we're on the radio and we say something that is that the overseers believe that falls into the realm of hate speech, and they push a button and turn us off, or worse, they come in and arrest us, and that could happen to you. And then, of course, you could have tattletales, or I shouldn't say tattletales, people in church, spies. I don't know if you'd call them spies, but monitors.
They're already there. They've been there.
Oh,
but now that the ability to have their information used to take people down is exactly what could happen. And as Ben Swan pointed out, as we said the other night, who is going to decide what is and what is not hate speech? And through those vague and undefined areas is where we literally can get in the most trouble. You could say, the only way to salvation is through Jesus Christ. That could be considered hate speech by somebody.
Very well said. Yeah, that's where we're at. It's absolutely incredible, folks. We'll be taking your call 661-944.
Yeah, we're going to go to the phones now.
What's our number?
Should I give out your cell phone number or the call-in number?
Yeah, cell phone
number. 661-244-9839. We're going to go to Kenneth first. He tried to get through the last few times we were taking calls and could not get through, so we're going to go to him first.
We've been deliberately keeping him down.
Kenneth, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how you doing, Doug, Joe?
Very well.
Good.
I wanted to talk. Last 3 weeks, I've been really trying to get through to either Alex and you. I know, start off with you. Nobody likes to be called heroes on the talk shows, and that's understandable. They're doing what they feel they need to be doing and bringing this out. And I agree. We all need to be heroes. But what we need is leaders. I keep hearing this, that people need to stand up and do something. We got to do something. We got to do something. And then in turn they say, well, what can we do? What can we do? I keep hearing this. And it's pounded on me in your show last night. I was as mad as he was. I mean, everything that's been going on. You hit on something that I had been trying to get through to talk about, and you hit on part of it last night, and it all started with Alex. Now, to me, my leaders are Alex, you and Joe, John B. Wells, Dave Hodges, and even Jesse Ventura. We need a leader that can stand up and lead, and my idea is just this. Let's turn this on them. Let's pull this mainstream media into it where they've got to stand up and listen. Alex had a caller about 2 Mondays a week ago that said he had a good idea. He said there's a lawyer out west that fights these land grabs and stuff, and he's really good. He said, number one, Mr. Bundy needed to file charges on these people. Not only did they do a theft, they done assault. They also, like he said, they done terroristic threatening. There's all kinds of crimes they committed, and he said he could file either in federal court or in civil court on different charges that these people did to him, taking his cattle, killing them. That's animal abuse, if nothing else, or some civil charges. People can't get out and help stand with this man, and I understand that by myself. People's asked me, what can we do? No, I can't afford to go to Nevada. I'm an older person. I'm 57. I can't afford to travel, but we can all afford to give in. And, Doug, you hit on it last night, part of my idea, a fund, a legal fund, a website to where people can donate money to help fight these people and start filing charges on them. Bring this out in the media, get it in civil courts, federal courts if there's criminal charges, civil courts if there's civil charges. Get so many going and have patriots who agree to come in without wanting a big bunch of money to defend these people at whatever cost it takes, and let this fund pay for that. Just like your guest last night, he seems like he might be in a little trouble now. How about a couple guys be paid for their food and stuff to go help maybe walk with this man, kind of protect him a little bit till he gets through this, to come out of this fund. Also a website that not only can take this fund in, but people can add stuff, documents they find, put it on here. Maybe it defends somebody down the road because of a document somebody found and submitted earlier. And it's just a matter of a leader. Between the shows that I named as my leaders, Alex, you, Dave, John B., and Jesse, the millions of people that could be reached. If everybody could donate $5, $10, $20, can you imagine the money we could raise to start bringing charges? And that Alex knows who this lawyer is, because when that guy called in, he said, I know who he is. I'll try to get him on the show. And that guy made a good point. Do it now. Get some charges brought up. Let's start exposing this stuff, and let's drag the mainstream media. Let's have so many people talking about it, if not through the court cases in the court, spreading the word. And the millions of people that y'all shows reach with just a little bit of money from each person. No, we can't go to Nevada. No, I can't go out there and help do something. But I can sure donate and help fight the cause where people that can step up through this site and help defend these people, help walk with these people if they need security or anything else. Let's get this countrywide and start filing charges. People getting wrongly done, contact the website and ask for help. If the panel sees they got a good thing going to fight these people, let's turn Mayday against them. Now, that's my idea, and I've seen it. Everybody's touched all around it, but nobody's hit. Let's get together and get America together. If you can't go do something, you can donate money to help.
Interesting concept. Yeah. Okay.
We need some leaders. That's it.
Okay. All right. Now, I was thinking about this myself. Okay, not the fund itself. However, I was thinking about the leadership aspect of this, and in fact, I was considering, and I'm going to bounce this off of you, and folks, you can weigh in on this as well. But caller, what about maybe having a summit of the alternative media talk show hosts? In other words, getting them together as quickly as possible and hammering out some sort of unified approach to this.
Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. And so many people, I know them shows I listen to that I name, I got led from one by the other pretty much. And y'all being a Christian-based show, I know yourself has been, and you know a lot of people. You know people that could get this done, like certain lawyers that could file for the criminal part, certain lawyers that could do the civil. And, these people could be vetted, that they don't want a lot of money for doing it. They want to do it because they're patriots. But, yes, we know we got to do their expenses, fund some of their stuff. But, yes, that summit with the talk show host, that's exactly what I was talking about. And y'all stand up as leaders. Y'all got the audience to reach people. And I've seen the views. Yeah. I've downloaded videos and watched. I've seen the views you people get. And it is really, that's what we need. And we need it, like you say, very quickly before it gets out of hand. People say, oh, let them come take my gun. I'll be ready. It's too late then. They're coming with force. And you ain't going to outpower that force. What we need is to make the first strike through the courts.
I totally agree with you, and I watched a little bit of a conference by the Oath Keepers, and of course today, and I've got to say that the Stuart Rose made a good point. The Bundy situation is one of many. They're going after land in Texas and other states out west, and they'll soon come, of course, to take hot spots, take your guns as well in Connecticut, New York, and other locations. So they're going to be very busy. So, I'm with you on this. And the only trouble is, and this is something that I really am very concerned about, is everyone needs to leave their egos and their pride and their desire, to be whatever at the door. You got to stop. You can't.
That's
boy,
the
that would
first thing
kill
I thought of, because
that's just horrible.
You have some kind of summit, and certain people, are invited, certain people aren't. I can already see there's already enough division in the alternative media.
However, it's workable, though.
Yeah.
It's workable. We can do this. And the other thing, caller, let me just plant this seed in everyone's mind as well, is we're not going to get anywhere through the judiciary. In other words, the federal court system, as we've seen through the eligibility issue, has been so corrupted. We're not going to be able to file any criminal, or the criminal part of this is not going to work. The only thing that has a chance, in my view, to work is the civil RICO action, where we circumvent the federal judiciary the corrupt and captured federal judiciary.
That would have to be done. I mean, you look at all the evidence that's come out, and as the caller is Kenneth, as you mentioned, that talking about how we need to get this in the face of the mainstream media. I mean, look at the Benghazi issue. These people, and for the Bundy issue, I mean, they've already branded him a criminal and a terrorist. They would intentionally not cover, like they did not cover the Benghazi true talking points and where they came from. They would intentionally not cover these things. It's not to say it wouldn't be successful or we couldn't do it. Just these are some of the battles we would face if we establish something like you're talking about.
Yeah, we got to get the mainstream media into it, because just like that Bundy deal you was talking about, Alex had a guy call in, and he was a black fella, and he said, the man's not prejudiced. I'm living in his house helping protect him for 2 weeks, and he said, I sleep in a bed in his house, and I eat a meal at his table. He said, now, if you think he was racist, do you think he'd have a black man in his house 24/7?
Of course not,
so,
yeah.
you know, the man ain't racist. He's my age, and I don't know, Doug, how old you are. I know you're an older gentleman, too, and Mr. Bundy is. The way he talks, he don't know these new terms that they're using, and somebody like Glenn Beck didn't do nothing but trap him into saying something that he didn't have no idea what kind of terms that this new world is using. And, you know, he was making a statement that they were better off because they wasn't aborting their children and they were living. Now, no, I ain't saying under slavery they was better off, but look at what they're under now. Socialists are they're aborting their babies, like he said. That's what he meant. He didn't mean nothing racist by the comment he made. It was the way he said it. Well, you know, I'm an old country boy myself. I'm from Kentucky, so.
Well, yeah, and by the way, I just want people to know that what you heard on, what was it, Media Matters, that was edited and shortened to provide a context in which it was never meant to be. And Mr. Bundy did not say anything assertive. He simply mused. He said, I wondered, you know, he used that, I believe that word, that phrase, I wondered if they, you know, wouldn't have been better off, and then went into his, you know, so, but you're right, too, you know, he's not an eloquent spokesperson, and nor am I. You know, but Mr. Bundy was set up. That question, that was he was set up and dragged into that, and I certainly, you know.
And what got me is really when Rand Paul turned on him, that really disappointed me, because, like I said, I'm from Kentucky, and I was really hoping Rand Paul would stand out there, but that kind of disappointed me when he turned his back on him just because he believed that comment.
Yeah, and we oh man, you can't. You're right on the money with this, and folks, the divisiveness that is so that we're seeing in the different media, the conservative side of things, it breaks my heart, because we need to get, and it also angers me as well, righteously so, I believe, that we are being split and divided in this fashion, and people can't see what it. People can't see it for what it is.
I've tried to wake them up, and they think I'm nuts.
Boy, we could form. You know, if everyone listening to this broadcast who a family member has that they think they're nuts, we could fill coliseums of you know, nut jobs like you and I and Joe and others.
Well, I still keep getting out there and pressing it. Hagmann, listen to it. Here's the number. If you ain't got a computer, call them on the phone, and you can listen on your phone.
Well, soon to come. And soon to come an app for the phone to make it much easier for you, which, so, yeah, thank you for spreading the word. But Ken, good idea. This is something that has been discussed, in fact, through a third party with John Wells, and also already what you've mentioned has actually been through a third party, and someone who shares your name as first name has discussed this as well. So with John Wells, and I think Alex would be on board, and others would be on board as well. So we're working toward that.
That's what we need. I sure appreciate it. And I'm going to get off here so y'all can take some other callers, but I sure appreciate your time. Y'all keep up the good work and hang it in there and keep it going.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. You have a good night.
You.
All right.
You too.
Some good ideas there. We're going to move on to calls. Just I want to hit this real quick. There's 2 sinkholes today in the eastern part of the United States that I don't think you saw this. A whole basically a city block was swallowed up in Baltimore, and then there was a even bigger sinkhole in Yonkers. They're being called landslides by the RSOE disaster site. But
boy, in Yonkers, I mean, we were up there many times, and that would be a real mess.
But in Baltimore, a block-long sinkhole opened up in a residential neighborhood in a rain-soaked Baltimore Wednesday, devouring cars and forcing the evacuation of several houses. And we were been told by Stan and by former guest Michael and many other people that sinkholes were going to continue. Stan said, the Earth's expanding, and but either way, for whatever reason, we were told to watch out for these continued sinkholes that were opening up. And I believe there was one that opened up in Mississippi. They had those bad tornadoes and storms roll through the southern part of the country, the tornadoes. And there was a few that took out some highways and some roads down there, too. Just wanted to report on that. But we're going to move back to the phones. 661-244-9839 is the number if you want to call in. We're going to go to area code 940. I know we tried to take this call the other night, and nobody was there. 940, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Well, somebody's there this time.
Well, yeah.
940.
Last shot, 940. All right, we'll move on.
Sounded like, what was that movie with Charlie Sheen when the aliens came and they bent their knees backwards and they talked funny? That's what that sound reminded me of.
Oh, goodness.
936, we're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Doug and Joe.
Good evening.
Big-time fan, first-time caller. Can
Cool.
you hear me?
We can. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Hey, this
All
is
right.
Mike in East Texas, hiding out here in the big thicket. And I just love listening to you folks. You're getting more tuned in to what the hell's going on all the time. And,
we're trying.
Pray
you know
for our
what?
nation.
I got to tell you, thank you for that comment. Look, this is a growth process for all of us, don't you think? I mean, it's.
Well, let me grow you a little bit. Hitler didn't die in that bunker. Okay, that little tidbit about 4:30. He didn't die then. There were 50 missing U-boats at the end of World War II. Okay, 50 missing U-boats, and they sent a thing out. It was called Operation High Jump. Look that up. And Admiral Byrd. Have you ever heard of Admiral Byrd before?
Sure.
The South Antarctic explorer. Well, he wrote an autobiography and talked about how Operation High Jump got kicked back out of Antarctica by UFOs, and that had swastikas on them and stuff. And our government, through like Operation Paperclip and so forth, combined with the Nazis way back when. And that's why, this country's not run for the American people, just an elite few.
Very true.
Yeah, an elite few with no allegiance to any nation.
Exactly. And caller, what you said about Hitler not dying in the bunker, honestly, if you would have told me that 5 years ago or made that statement 5 years ago, I would have just laughed that off.
Yeah, you'd just, dismiss me. Yeah, I'm one of those conspiracy guys that gets dismissed.
Yeah.
And it's paying the price out here. I'm known as Ashes and Sackcloth on the internet, but I can't even afford a computer anymore. It's just pretty bleak. ways, but yet, God is kind, and He takes you where you need to be. And we're get ready, guys. Get ready, because we've got those MRAM things being given to sheriff's departments out here, and there's Chinese crap with the Mexican border.
Yeah.
Anyway, love y'all.
Yeah. Well, God bless you, my friend, and stay tucked down there in the sagebrush. Keep listening. We love you. We appreciate your allegiance to the program, and thanks for deliberately listening to us. We really appreciate that, my friend.
We pray for you every night. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
God bless, and thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I like how you say deliberately listen. Like we have people in the studio we tie down and force to listen to the show. But I know what you mean. We're not on car radios as people sit in traffic.
Well, we are. Well, no. I mean, there are a few terrestrial stations that broadcast us, but the signal is weak, and but nonetheless. But hey, I just got some new duct tape and some unwilling participants we can tape down to the studio. We should have like one a night. But go ahead. Let's keep going with the calls.
All right. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left till the top of the hour break, so we'll take one more call until the break. 856, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 856. All right.
Sounds like someone's in the submarine down there. That's all right.
I shouldn't have clicked off. That sounded like it was getting interesting with the sound there. But we're going to go to 804. 804, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello. Am I on the program?
Yes, you are.
Hello? Okay. My name is Bob. I'm from Virginia, and I am the airline pilot that sent an article in to Steve Quayle concerning watching the weather warfare over Mississippi the other night. This is on Monday evening.
I got your email.
That article.
Yes, Steve sent me your email without the headers, just the copy, just the text. Tell our audience about what. Go ahead and tell our audience about that.
Well, I was made aware of the geoengineering by my stepfather, and I gave him initially the standard airline pilot response. Well, it depends upon the air mass and the temperature as to what the contrail will look like. But he continued to ask me, and he even sent me some pictures, and I said, well, that's not normal. There's no airways. He lives in the Los Angeles Basin area. So I began to research it, and, of course, came up with the budget and the geoengineering government plan, and then I began to take notice myself. What's interesting is there are contrails that do linger, which are normal aircraft contrails. There was an article here recently, or a video of an airplane landing in Los Angeles, which was a normal humid air contrail where the air was decompressing from the bottom of the wing and leaving a contrail. So it kind of confuses the discussion and discredits it. However, in my research and observations, there is real geoengineering happening. But back to another more to the point is that I was at 37,000 feet headed for Baltimore out of Phoenix and headed over Crestview, which is exactly where all that severe weather was. And I saw the weather. It was very tightly packed, constantly discharging lightning at the ground. There was almost no moisture outside the very confined cell. And then I saw a temperature deviation in the western Mississippi area. I saw a minus 37 RAM air temperature, which then around central Mississippi went to minus 27. So that was a change correction. Minus 34 up to minus 27, which is about a 7-degree change. 1 or 2 degrees across the front is about all I ever usually see. That doesn't mean it can't happen. But anyway, the temperature went back to a minus 34 east of Mississippi, which is very unusual. And then, of course, I saw the wind feeding into the cell up at altitude. Very strange. So it confirmed that there was weather warfare going on. And I guess I'm compelled to now make light of it because there were real people being injured, homes, towns, and families disrupted and destroyed.
What's the larger purpose? I have a feeling, and I was just trying to dig for the copy, the email that you sent. But what's the larger purpose? For example, the geoengineering. I suspect that or am I reading this wrong? Where the homes that were destroyed in the severe weather, was that an intended consequence or an unintended consequence of what was taking place?
Well, I think that that's speculation, and I think that we need to look at all the facts and decide why. What is the purpose of destroying an area or homes, towns in that area? First off, they're red states. They're going to be voting in November. They grow crops, which under Agenda 21 and UN, they don't want people growing crops and feeding themselves. So there could be a multifaceted purpose for doing that. They're also usually conservative. They're Christian-based towns and communities. That's speculation on my part as to why. I'm not in the head of these crazies that are running things.
I got a question for you. I don't know if you saw this video. I saw people talking about it. Apparently there was a plane that sprayed the chemtrails that actually landed and forgot to turn off their blower or distributor of these chemtrails. Did you hear about that?
That was a video. Yeah, that was a video that I was referencing. I saw that.
Oh, okay.
I think it was on Tuesday morning. And I think that airplane was landing in Los Angeles. The air was very moist and humid. And with the airplane landing slow with the nose up, my perception of that, and I did not see any spray nozzles, is that that's normal contrails from a landing aircraft in humid air.
Okay, I appreciate that. I didn't see the video. I just heard people or saw people.
Well, I did not. I don't think I gave you a copy of what Steve sent me, and obviously you didn't see the report on Steve's site. So I knew as soon as you opened your mouth, I knew that's what you were referring to. But so you put a lot of time. Obviously, you put a lot of time and effort and research into this. And you've got the experience behind you, right? I mean, this is not something that you're casually doing. I mean, you know what you're talking about here.
Well, I've done extensive reading and research in probably all geopolitical matters that are currently going on. The first book that I read was Patriots in early 2007, which tipped me off to things not being what I thought, and so that that started a adventure in peeling back the layers of the onion. So I've just been studying and researching ever since, and everything that I could come across and look at. But there's been a lot of discussion referring to civilian airliners spraying chemtrails or doing geoengineering. I think that discredits the discussion because most airline pilots, including me, would say, well, there's no evidence of that, so therefore it's a hoax. However, my conclusion is, after studying the issue and, in fact, my own observations, is it is happening, but it's a contracted aircraft.
Right. Exactly.
And there's videos of actual commercial aircraft having almost close encounters to the point of crashing into each other with these aircrafts that are spraying these trails along the skies.
Just to be clear, caller, you're an airline pilot, correct?
Yes, I'm an airline captain for a major airline currently.
Okay, all right. Okay, so obviously your word, your research, your information, just by your position holds more weight than the average person out there with no experience. Okay, this is good. So, I mean, you're speaking from a position of knowledge in addition to what you've researched. So, so just to be clear, what I hear you saying is It's not the commercial passenger aircraft or cargo planes that are doing anything. It's contracted, specific, mission-specific craft that are flying. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's my conclusion, and I've seen it. I've been vectored around the activity. Case in point, just before Sandy hurricane, the entire East Coast was being geoengineered. So I said, oh gosh, they're going to make it worse. And sure enough, it was steered, it was manipulated, and of course steered right at New York. Now also what we had during that time is a severe cold front, which of course kept seniors in their homes and not voting down to Florida, which may or may not be a connection. I just look at all the facts and decide what's trying to be accomplished here. But back to the storm over Mississippi, and then, of course, worked its way across the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. I mean, it was clearly a manipulated, energized storm. And I could see it from my vantage point, and this is wrong. People are being destroyed, homes, towns, families disrupted, and I began to think, how on earth can this be stopped? You know, we can't shoot it, we can't do anything with it. We can shed light on it. We can bring to the attention of the people that are compartmentalized, that are operating the equipment and electronics that do this. Say this is injuring people.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
I decided that, and I've been doing my best to alert people, to awaken people, because my nickname, at least by one first officer, is Captain X-File, because I discuss this rather than just talking about football and baseball. I talk about other stuff, So.
But you've been actually, as a pilot, you're saying that you've been actually diverted around the zones where aerial spraying is taking place. Is that correct?
Yes.
Interesting.
And then I queried what kind of special activity, and the controller said I can't answer that.
Meaning to say that he's not allowed to answer that, as opposed to he doesn't know. Is that what you're saying?
That would be my assumption, but that is there again an assumption.
Okay. All right. Do you happen to have a website or published any white papers on this at all publicly?
No, I've not published anything. I guess my position has been to try to wake people up, inform people, help to prepare people, and I think that I've kind of, in a way, reached my limit, because now I'm just kind of getting blank stares. And I guess if people are not aware now that there's something seriously wrong going on in Washington, D.C., it's short of whacking them over the side of the head, we're just not going to wake them up. So, and that's not saying that Christ won't, the Lord won't inspire people to look at life through a different lens, so to speak, but to inform people that are already aware and awake to help work against this evil agenda.
Amen, brother.
It was very helpless to watch, because the storm was a constant lightning, and you don't see that. And of course, I saw the temperature change and the wind change, and of course, I felt the rough air on the edge of the low pressure zone. But interestingly to note, over the last probably 3 to 4 years, when I get my weather briefing and I look at the surface analysis chart, they've just been very unusual. And there'll be a frontal system that'll have 4 or 5 different lows on it. I've never seen that before. Now, obviously, there are earth changes. There's, an uptick in volcanic activity and earthquakes and jet stream activity. I'm a sailor also on the Chesapeake Bay, so I see tidal changes, and magnetic field changes, the magnetic north is moving now 60 miles a year. So there's clearly changes happening. It remains inconclusive as to exactly what's causing this, but clearly something's going on.
Very interesting and very good. We're late for a break, but I'll tell you what, we'd appreciate you keeping in touch with us. I certainly appreciate the fact that you're, you know what, you sound like an airline pilot, and you sound like somebody. And I'm being honest with you. You sound like a guy, like a pilot that I would not be afraid to fly. Because of your calm and deliberate demeanor, and the fact that you're unwilling to speculate on matters in which you just don't know it adds to your credibility. And I thank you for that. But I'd really appreciate, sir, if you keep in touch, and we'd certainly, you've got a forum here to express your findings, and I think it's important for, hey, maybe you get the deer in the headlights look for the majority of people, but here, your input is welcome. So please keep in touch with us.
All right. Thank you for your hard work and trying to inform people. I've been following your work for a couple years, and of course I follow Steve Quayle's work and John Moore and Dave Hodges. True News. Each morning I have kind of an intelligence brief to see what I need to do or prepare for, or perhaps call family and friends to alert them to.
Perhaps as you're flying, you can pipe in over the intercom system our program and just really screw up the aircraft. The people on the well, thank you for keeping up on the information, and certainly, like I said, you've got a forum here to provide people with your findings, your research, and your well-founded research. And we'd like to talk. Certainly, my email address is on the front page of my website. Feel free to correspond with me off air, and we could develop some sort of communication with respect to your research and findings, and get the information out to our listeners.
Okay, since I drive through the D.C. area and take note of military activity and things, I think it's time to do my best to alert and inform people as much as I can. Because, as I said, I've somewhat reached my limit. But thank you very much. Nice talking to you guys, and have a good evening. I'll resume watching or listening to your show.
God bless you, sir, and you take care. Thank you.
Great call. Thanks. Great call. Thank you so much, sir.
We'll be right back after these short messages. We reach the
prism of convergence provided by the Soviet KGB defector, and Steve Quayle talks about him a lot, is Golitsyn, Anatoly Golitsyn, arguably the most important Soviet-Russian defector ever to make it to the West. And he worked in a top-secret department of the KGB that planned a long-range strategy for the Politburo and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. His books, I think he wrote a couple of New Lies for Old. I know that's one of them. That was published back in 1984, and the Perestroika Deception, which I'm very familiar with, in 1990. They exposed the intricate Soviet strategy of faking this collapse of the Soviet Union back in the 90s. Now, you have to understand, collapse did take place, but it's not to the extent of extinction of the Soviet communist agenda and party and objectives. It was designed to fool us as spectators. Now, without a visible communist enemy, look, the United States and the EU could be convinced to gradually merge or converge both economically and politically with the new Russia. Now, that's kind of a different take on many others who have said, well, we are fighting Russia via proxy, and we are doing that, but the higher levels, if you look at this as a multi-level chess game, the stagecraft that we see are the fights between the United States and Russia, between Putin and who looks the man, the John Wayne of the world, who appears to have the moral high ground against Obama. Well, when you look at this, the stagecraft that's at play here is the proxy wars that are taking place, and they're very real proxy wars. People are dying. You've got 250,000 dead in Syria at the hands of course, our intelligence services. And you've got now Ukraine, the fighting there, which our intelligence services, in combined with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and other intelligence agencies have started opened that front against Russia. But at the very top, what Galitzin has spoken of and what we're seeing here is this unification process, this convergence of the United States and Russia, which is important to people have to understand at the higher levels. And W, our intelligence source, who is, by the way, I believe is perhaps one of the most knowledgeable people on geopolitical affairs and he'll be with us for the entire show tomorrow night. But what we're seeing is this intentional deception, because at the highest of levels, you're looking at the emergence of a 10-zone economic power globalist structure, and that's what is taking place. But the convergence process is continuing with the deliberate and indispensable assistance of one world globalists. And if you look at who they are, because I like to say, who can I point to and say, okay, that's one. Well, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and of course, don't forget his daughter works with Joe Scarborough, Mika, Henry Kissinger, and of course, the infamous George Soros. Don't forget, all three are from the Council on Foreign Relations. And the CFR handprints and fingerprints are everywhere throughout the entire process. So,
listen to this.
In the Ukraine as well. Go ahead.
Security tight at secretive Democracy Alliance meeting. Billionaires and millionaires rub elbows behind closed doors of Democratic politicians and progressive foundations. This from today, courtesy of the Free Beacon. Democrats have long rallied against the lack of transparency in political funding, but security was airtight this week as a hush-hush network of progressive moneymen and activists held a closed-door conference to map out their plan to shift U.S. policy to the left, if that can even be done any more than it's already been done. At the elegant Ritz-Carlton Hotel in downtown Chicago, wealthy donors, Democratic politicians, and representatives from left-wing leaning activist groups met for the conference hosted by the Democracy Alliance, a progressive donor network that funnels millions of dollars to undisclosed activist groups and political causes. The 4-day conference, which was closed to the public and media, drew high-profile Democrats, including DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and White House Advisor Valerie Jarrett. Access to the conference was invite-only and tightly controlled. Democracy Alliance officials manned a table outside the entrance to the conference areas where attendees heard speeches by progressive rising stars like new Mayor Bill de Blasio and Kentucky Senate candidate Allison Lendergren Grimes. Conference goers also attended panels on a host of progressive pet issues such as climate change and healthcare reforms. But even most of the invited attendees were barred from a room marked Partners Only. There, Democracy Alliance deep-pocketed donors listened to contribution pitches, announced new funding pledges, and viewed PowerPoint presentations evaluating the finances and performances of Democracy Alliance-funded groups, according to two sources in the room. Most attendees were not allowed in the Partners Room. Partners in the Democracy Alliance are reportedly required to contribute a minimum of $200,000 a year to activist groups approved by the organization and pay annual dues of $30,000. I think people are having private conversations, said Michael Vacken, a top advisor to George Soros. There is no conspiracy here. He continued.
Yeah, no conspiracy. we have sent, and just talking with respect to Ukraine, we've sent, I believe, $5 billion. It's the accounting of the money, how it's being used, is non-existent. I wanted to bring up, we should take calls, but I just wanted to bring up, if we have time tonight, after the calls, I do want to talk about Victoria Nuland and others, but because Victoria Nuland and Susan Rice, for example, they figure prominently into not only Ukraine, but Benghazi and Syria. So, just if we have time, I'm going to get into that. But let's go back to the phone.
Before we go back to the phones, I want you to hear what Pelosi said about Benghazi today.
The new emails about Benghazi that have come out and that have said that the White House essentially prepped Susan Rice to talk about that the video essentially caused the attack on the embassy. And can I get your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen that, but what I will say is, again, diversion, subterfuge. Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Why aren't we talking about something else? Whatever was in.
Why aren't we talking about something else instead of this diversion called Benghazi?
Talk about diversion and subterfuge. Thanks for playing that clip. Nancy Pelosi is, she's Nancy. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I can read your mind.
Yeah. If we knew, folks, if the American public knew the truth behind Benghazi and knew exactly what Barack Hussein Obama / Barry Soetoro was doing for the 18 and a half hours during that crisis period, and seriously, what he was doing, then we would have a revolt the next morning.
Thanks, Debbie, in the chat. She makes reference to Hillary. What difference does it make now?
I have to give our guest last night, and folks joining us late, thank you for joining us. I just want to say this. Last night we did have Robert Tosh Plumley on, of course, Robert Tosh Plumley being with the CIA and speaking out about Benghazi, issued 11 points, 11 questions, and we did have live monitoring by the United States Department of Justice, an assistant to the Deputy Attorney General, Deputy to the Attorney General, listening live. And, of course, Mr. Plumley was told, this came through a couple of different sources, that he had no right to talk about this, and the ire of the Department of Justice under Holder, and Holder himself was extremely upset. Now, expect for him to be gagged. He'll not be able to talk. Now, it was interesting because I did speak with W as well, and W says, well, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But that was before I think that was before he learned that his cellular phone was turned into a doorstop or a paperweight, based on, and I'm being very serious about this, based on last night's interview. Now,
he could send it to us, and we could have it for a target for our blow darts
and our Nerf bats too. But folks, this is a big deal, because Benghazi is the key, and I even get emails too. Can't you talk about something else? Well, yeah, we could, but if you understand Benghazi, then you understand the larger picture of the globalist restructuring of the planet. And also, the same players in Benghazi are the same players in Ukraine. They're the same players in other parts of the world. The strategy is the same. The money, the flow of money from NGOs is the same. The drug shipments or the weapons shipments, virtually the same. You're talking about the false flag operations. Oh, and the players are the same, and so is the money, or the masters behind this, and they are the Saudis. And the Saudis have the connection to the CIA through Aramco, and via CIA's predecessor, the OSS. All of this connects together. This didn't happen overnight. It goes back to the Dulles brothers, and you could even throw in once you begin to understand the larger picture, how the World War II and the Nazis play into this. We had a caller talk about Nazis. Well, this goes back even to the Second World War, and I know that's very difficult for a lot of people to comprehend. It took me a lot of time to comprehend this, and I'm not even sure I've got it right, but at least I have a better handle on things, and I can see where things are headed, and you can better tell where things are headed, folks, if you study where they've been and the historical context of things. That's really why I wasn't that great in history in school, but now it's so important to me because it does create this context in everything that we're seeing today.
Back to the phones. We're going to go to area code 201. 201, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, I heard that I was in queue, and I didn't believe it because I didn't really know that I pushed it. But I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful for you guys, and Yahweh bless you and keep you.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yes, you're a blessing, and, it's so good to know that you're not the only one out here. I felt like Elijah for a while, but hallelujah.
Is there anything specific? I'm curious. Now, you've been listening for a while in queue there. Anything specific that is on your mind this evening that you want, that we haven't touched on, perhaps, that you'd like to direct the program to?
There is so much. You just keep going. You're hitting it all. I can't even add to it at this point. There's some things that just are so disturbing to me. Dave Hodges' latest report on CPS, totally understanding that, and it's horrific. Horrific. I don't know what to do. I'm praying. I'm asking God for wisdom, and I pray that, maybe I'll have I'll get an answer.
Well, keep praying, whatever your personal situation might be. In fact, Dave Hodges, his report on CPS, if you haven't read it, folks, at commonsenseshow.com, definitely read it. Caller, thank you so much for hanging in there. Thanks for your blessings, and God bless you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Have a great night. All right, we're going to go to 254 next. 254. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, guys. First-time caller, long-time listener, great show. I kind of wanted to go back to something that Doug touched on earlier in the show about the Oath Keepers Bundy Ranch, breakdown that they did, and kind of get your feelings on it.
Well, boy, that's a heck of a discussion. Yeah. You may or may not be aware that we had Jerry Lemus on. In fact, he was arranged through attorney Billy Bear to come on and talk, and Jerry DeLemus was from New Hampshire, went to the ranch, part of the militia structure. And, of course, wow, where do I start? The Oath Keepers had come out and issued a nearly an hour-long conference on on the backstory. They did not flee. They did not run. And we stand fully behind the Oath Keepers, by the way. Okay, Stuart Rhodes, to me, is a man of integrity and character. Now, there were issues within the camp, and this is a problem. And I got to tell you, this is something that I don't exactly know how to. And boy, if anyone out there smarter than me, and there are many, it can really explain how to prevent stuff like this from happening. But the Oath Keepers are a very structured paramilitary, well-trained organization with very, very stringent guidelines on how, on operationally speaking, I mean, very tight. They butted heads with some of the militias within the camp, some of the militias, according to the Oath Keepers, were a little bit, what would you use? Just unstable, perhaps. When I say militias, people within the militias were a little bit unstable, and it presented a danger to others. Okay, now I see that, it's going to happen. So the problem, as I see it, and for those unfamiliar with this, the problem as I see it is there was a lack of discipline. And I would say this with Mr. Jerry DeLemus, who we had on our show. I would say this: well, if you're going to go out there and to be the leader of the militia end of things, you've got to exercise leadership. Well, apparently that wasn't done, and there were things that happened that fell through the cracks for whatever reason. And the Oath Keepers, hey, they said, look, we're not going to work under these circumstances where our lives are in danger. But to me, the most important part of this, caller, I don't mean to dominate this. I'm just going to give you my
no, not at all.
Perhaps one of the most important aspects of this is there was the rumor, and it was a rumor, that the Holder Justice Department signed off on a potential drone strike against the ranch. Well, Stuart Rhodes said, well, okay, we're going to have to investigate this. Let's send somebody out. And in fact, he had sent somebody to Dallas to meet with the source of the rumor in a scheduled meeting. They sat down and they tracked this rumor, this allegation, as far as they could, their confidence level with respect to the validity of the potential for a drone strike. According to Stuart Rhodes, was a 6 or a 7 out of a scale of 10. And because of that, and because they could not absolutely confirm the potential for this, they decided to err on the side of caution and exercised, they actually went, advised the militias to do certain things for their own protection, gave suggestions that were not followed. And there was a kind of a wild card in there too, and I think this is extremely important because this does speak to some mindset others have. One thing Stuart Rhodes did say is there was one woman and a couple of children there at the ranch who were there in a supportive morale capacity that didn't need to be there. There was a woman and some children. Given the fact that there was potential danger, he said, look, we can't have the kids exposed to this, and of course you exposed to this, so why don't we put you in a hotel until we really find out what the heck's going on? And she kind of, and these are my words now, she kind of freaked out and said, I'm protected by God. God will protect me, and I'm staying here. Okay, well, unfortunately, it's great to have that mindset, okay? However, it's not a very responsible thing to do given the information that you're working with. In other words, yeah, I believe God's going to protect me, but I'm not going to go stand in front of a bus and test it. Or stand and wait for a drone to strike me. So that was the mentality of at least one, and I think perhaps a pervasive wild card type of mentality. And it's not to disparage the woman or it's just a factor that I'd like to bring up. But the bottom line is this: I respect the Oath Keepers. I believe that they did exactly what they should have done. Based on my research, and the militias, well, a little less organized and a little bit less, not quite as together as they should have been or should be even today. Does that make sense to you?
Well, if you'd like to get my 2 cents from it, I had the opportunity to be out there, so I was kind of a third party, getting to observe the Oath Keeper side and then some of the militia side and the Bundy side. So I got to view there, and the video. I just feel like the video was so divisive, and I really do like the Oath Keepers, and I do think Stewart is usually a great guy, but I just felt like it was more of a divisive thing to do to release that video than helpful. I feel like it was kind of like children like taking their ball and going home. Clearly, there are some people from the militia side that were, as he said, loose cannons. There are definitely some people walking around, not saying that they're agent provocateurs, but definitely pick a fight. And I think that's to be expected with any kind of movement like that. But on the other side, Jerry is an Oath Keeper as well. So it's very strange to see them battling internally amongst each other. And I by no means am I taking Jerry's side, but I can see for him it's very, very difficult where you're trying to keep these loosely knit group of people together that really don't owe you any allegiance, and you can't just come in and say, well, I'm the Oath Keepers, and this is the way we're going to do things. And I did witness it with some of the militia guys. Like I said, they're definitely flying off the handle. I just didn't like the tone of the video with Stewart and the three other gentlemen. I thought the older gentleman did really behave himself well. The one guy sitting on Stewart's left, I saw him out there. I just felt it was being really nitpicky, and I think in the long run it's going to do a lot more harm than good, especially for this kind of this burgeoning movement.
Okay, since you were out there, and that was when I watched that video, and it was a 55-minute video, I think, there were 4 or 5 people, Stuart Rhodes was heading the video. I guess my biggest question is the only question I had about that is why couldn't that have been done outside of the purview of the public, that video? That did bother me because, boy, talk about being able to use for propaganda purposes. Not that the information was incorrect, but
like there haven't been enough
venue,
and there hasn't been enough, division and infighting, and even the media labeling and marginalization already. That just was like icing on the cake.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's something also, that I'm, even when he's talking about the guys almost getting in gunfights, I just wanted to go, don't talk about that. You don't throw any more fuel on the fire, guys. This is horrible what you're doing right now. Anyway, I just wanted to you had mentioned that earlier in the broadcast, and I'd watched that today, and like I said, haven't been out there and kind of being a third party and seeing the different, and he's definitely, but I feel that if we're going to move forward with this deal, we're going to have to learn to be as inclusive. Obviously you have to control the wild men. There are wild men out there, but there's also this kind of strange, if you're not one of us type person, if you're not one of us with the Oath Keeper, or if you weren't, in Special Forces, Army Ranger with me, or I'm a Navy, and a lot of the times it's guys out there acting like they are something that they're not, or, just because I have, my $3,000 rifle and my $2,000 scope and my body, there are definitely some interesting characters, but if we're going to coalesce and work together on this deal, we've got to try to find more points to be together than start dividing and, I really being the nitpicky and talking about, we brought our FLIR cameras and the night vision. I don't know. I really found it to be more divisive than good, and just I think it's going to cause more cracks in the wall.
Well, as I finished watching that video, and I was engaged in other things at the time, a thought occurred to me. I'd like to have Stuart Rhodes come on and to explain a few things as well. I understand both sides, but I do believe, and this is the other thing too, I really think that there was an infiltration, because I don't think that the people who were coming to help, the militia, now the Oath Keepers have more of a cohesive, they know who's who, okay? The militias, it's a little bit less organized that arrived there. So the potential for infiltration by a troublemaker from the feds is exponentially greater. And I think
Jerry was I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, I just want to say this. I'm not blaming Jerry or anyone else. It's just the way that it would kind of played out that way. And so all I'm saying is the fact that I do believe, if I had to guess, I would say that there was an infiltration, deliberate infiltration, for the purpose of causing an incident or a division among the people who are there trying to help.
Well, I think it's a lot of alpha males, and everybody's trying to be the top dog, and sometimes everybody's not going to get along. I think even in a lot of the Revolutionary Army and stuff, when you read about it, you read about some kind of wild characters. And, there are some guys out there. There's guys out there that quit their jobs from the Midwest, and they were looking for a fight, for sure. But
what would you have done different? I'm curious, because you were out there. What would you have done different?
I think first and foremost you have to recognize that it's not a standing army. I think that's something that a lot of guys want to, these guys, we're the Marines and this. Okay, well, you're not in the Marines anymore. If you're reservist, you're serving, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. You're not active in the Marines. And a lot of the times you get into these guys, and it's just like it just seems to be a contest, as no one can verify or back up what anybody's saying. So they're just wild stories. I was special ops in the Delta Force and Iraq, and we were, it's hard to believe anything at a certain time. And I think, guys, or maybe, I don't know if you have, you get a guy around guys on sports teams and they start talking all sorts of noise. The same, I noticed there was a lot of that. And I think what happens is people start feeling that they're not getting respected enough. And I think that's what he was really alluding to, talking about, the guys getting into tiffs. And by tiffs, obviously, he was alluding to gunplay at one point. And I think there needs to be a little bit of, not necessarily there has to be complete cohesion, but I think there needs to be an understanding that certain people are standing on their own, or certain people are loosely knit together, and that you don't have to be the alpha male over everybody at all times, as long as everybody's doing what their job is. And I think that was kind of the problem. I felt that he was coming out on the video, whereas I can understand some of his concerns and problems. And believe me, and like I said, I saw it on the other side. But Jerry was also an oath keeper as well. To reiterate that, so it was there. They were in house with those two, and Jerry was nominated. Like they said, the Bundys decided to nominate him because of their relationship with them. But I think when you to look at this as a realistic, if we're going to move forward and try to use this as a cohesive unit, there cannot necessarily be a straight up military type order to it. You're going to have kind of some loose militia people, and you're going to have to understand that they're going to have egos involved, and they're not going to salute you or sir you just because you tell them that you served 10 years in the Marines. And I think that was a problem that I saw on both sides.
Interesting observation, really, and I have to agree. Knowing the information from Jerry and knowing or seeing the information put forth by the Oath Keepers, somewhere in the middle lies the not only the truth, but the potential for boy, I hate to use this phrase, a learning experience. But I think that we need to learn from this for the next time.
Well, that's something I brought up. Oh, I didn't mean to step over you. No, and that's something I was trying to bring up to the guys when I was out there. Look at this guy. He doesn't know how to wear his gear right. And I was like, we need the guys that weren't. We can't just win this thing with all vets and all ex-military. We need, it was some of the men were farmers. They were coming straight off. I was like, you got to respect the guy that has the gumption to come out here, and you got to treat him with a little bit of respect. Teach him if he needs to be taught something, but let's not talk down to him and make him feel separate and just try to lord, whatever your military service was over those guys. I tried to get through, I got through, I think, to a couple of guys, and I think that that's something, and I hate to be critical. When I watched the video today, it really upset me because I think this is only going to cause divisiveness. This is only going to make that guy feel that who wants to do something. There were several guys out there on that Saturday that looked like they had just gone to the sporting goods store and bought a rifle, which I think is dangerous. But the fact that they're coming out there to support, we have to also take that for what it is And as we saw in Iraq, you can't even loosely control lodges, or we couldn't even control the city. So those kind of people can be very, very ineffective, or very effective in that type of environment. They can be also dangerous, but we can't show utter disdain to them just because they haven't had the military service that some of the others have. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. I'm sorry I took too long on this, but
no, it's an important topic. Thank you for the call, and again, it's an important topic. I think that we need to understand this, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't want to keep you, but I'll just say this: there is, in a situation like that, there really is no room for condescension. There's no room for treating anyone as a second-class citizen. On the other hand, now there's no room for error either. I mean, there's little room for error, I should say. You don't want to be cannon fodder for the people who are aiming guns at you, and you want to be responsible and do the best. I mean, if I was out there not having combat experience, if I was out there, I would just look. I'd be listening to the people who are seasoned and who are in a position to know what the tactics should be, and voluntarily listen because I don't want to get my butt shot off, okay, either by friendlies or by non-friendlies. Having said that, the way, and I think, I have to agree with you on this, I do believe that video is going to probably not the best thing to do in terms of laying it all out publicly. That wouldn't be my first choice. So, but interesting that you bring this up, and it's been on my mind and on my heart.
All right, we're going to fit in at least another phone call. We're going to go to area code 253. 253, thanks for holding. You are now live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
253, thanks for holding. Hey, you guys.
Good evening.
Hi. Hi, Joe. Hi, Doug. Hey.
What's up?
This is Jack Groening up in Lakewood, Washington again. What a good show you had last night with Josh on there. And you know what? When you started the show off tonight and you were talking about that call that came into your office today, you need to take that as very, very serious. I mean, you don't know what these people are up to. They don't want this information out. And, they're going to probably try and do something. You don't know what they might come up with.
Yeah, we are taking it seriously, and I've got to tell you that that program last night made it to some pretty high-level people and agencies, and I do expect the other shoe to drop on this. Now, personally, I don't feel as threatened as I believe Mr. Plumlee feels, because he's the one out there with the information. However, look, I got to tell you, our actions do have ramifications. This is not some sort of game we're playing. This is, in fact, real life, and you're exactly right.
At the same time, though, I don't let it bother me at all. It's not something I've even thought about, even after we talked this morning. I don't feel, I know they can do what they can try to do what they want to do, but I know that there's a higher protection that we're under, and all they can do is try.
Well, now here's the Nerf bat scenario. Look, I understand what you're saying.
That sounds like that lady you was talking about earlier, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, you guys might want to consider some bodyguards.
Yeah. Well, what I do is I use my family as human shields. I grab. Yeah. No.
That's a good one.
But I got to tell you, my friend, we do take precautions, and although Joe says what he just said, there is that belief in the higher power. There's the spirit of protection. On the other hand, you can't be stupid. You can't. You've got to be. You've got to anticipate what's coming and get the heck out of the way, or make provisions to strike back.
Exactly.
So.
Watch your back. When you guys are out together or you're out separate, man, you need to like have eyes in the back of your head. I mean, I don't know. I just got a real bad feeling when you said that. I thought, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. That sounds really serious. And I'm asking for the callers tonight to really keep Josh and you and Joe in prayer and keep a hedge of protection around you guys. I pray for you guys every night. As soon as this show goes off, I'm in prayer. And speaking of that,
thank you.
That Richard Hoagland show, you know, I listened to him like 2 or 3 days before that on Coast to Coast, and it was the same show. But it didn't click until I heard it on your show, and I thought, oh. When I hung up and the show was over, I said, what was that? I couldn't.
In a good way or a bad way? What was that?
In a bad way. You know, my spirit said, you know, it's like the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, hey, it's just a bigger picture of the deception.
Well, okay, right there. Exactly. You've got to take, look, we asked for data points, not conclusions. We asked for the data that he found. Now he interjected his
conclusions. Doug, you're always saying, you got to think outside the picture, you know? And when I heard that a second time, I can't believe that I didn't catch it the first time on Coast. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, and I look, we let him state his case. We let him say what he found and what his conclusions were. And the fact that we did not interrupt him does not constitute an endorsement. And those people, right. There are a lot of people out there saying, well, you should have came in and said this and said that. And I've got...
You remember the guy that you cut off that one time in the interview? You remember cutting him off?
We didn't actually cut him off.
I just sitting here waiting, thinking, man, he's going to cut him off here in a minute.
Well, no, the broadcast got cut off, and that was Scott Stevens, and how timely it did get cut off.
But on the other hand, we invited Mr. Hoagland on to provide the information that he found, or to provide the fruits of his research, and we did give him the latitude to expand upon his beliefs. Now, that does not mean that we endorsed it, but we gave him the platform. Right. But it's also a good picture. And you know something? We are all going to be... Look, folks, if you don't think that we are not, if you think that you're going to be insulated from conclusions like that, then you're sadly mistaken. Use it to learn from and to understand what we're going to be facing as a Christian body. Use that as a lesson. Use that as a picture.
Some of the best emails we got were, thank you for having him on, so we can, see the other side of the story, see what the other belief is, so people are better equipped to combat against certain beliefs that are contrary to the Word of God.
Right. Okay, well, that's all I got to say, and the show's about over. So, hey, thanks, and God bless you guys. I love you, and I'm here every night listening to you.
Well, we love you too, and God bless you, and always appreciate your calls, and thank you.
Love your laugh, too, my friend. All right, brother.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, that'll do it for tonight. That's it. Tomorrow night, very important program. the intelligence analyst that we have. Very important program tomorrow night. Please tell a friend. Tell a mundo.
Absolutely. And the last caller, his laugh, it's funny. The way he laughs, he has me actually laughing. I have to mute myself. I'm laughing so hard while I'm listening to his laugh. And
it's contagious.
I was just going to say, they say laughter is contagious, and his certainly is.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, nothing I said was meant to disparage or to disparage anyone.